Elon, I, the Tetragrammaton, the Lord God Most High, I do exercise thee, and do powerfully command thee, O Spirit. Elon, I, the Tetragrammaton, the Lord God Most High, I do exercise thee, and do powerfully command.
In the dark shadows, in the white cold, fearlessly we search for knowledge new and old. We drink the strong spirits and read the ancient tomes. The order of the Abracast. We are the brave and the bold. Occult, history, conspiracy, and violence.
How does the old prayer go? God, give me the strength to change the things I can and the serenity to accept the things that I cannot. This is my third shot trying to start this show, and I'm running so behind, and I just have this crazy cat in my studio that's causing all kinds of problems. So I am John Towers, and this is the Abracast. We're talking tonight about the fourth book of Cornelius Agrippa from the Book of Ceremonial Magic by Arthur Edward Waite. Time rests for no man, so I'm going to just jump right into this. The fourth book of Cornelius Agrippa. It is a matter now almost of general knowledge that the fourth book of the occult philosophy is attributed to Cornelius Agrippa. That is, it is rejected as spurious. The authenticity of the famous three books has never been questioned and is indeed beyond challenge. The fourth is perhaps less interesting from the nature of its contents than from the question of its authorship. It is, at the same time, a much more skillful performance than the common run of magical impostors. It connects with and rises out of the genius work in a very curious manner, and having regard to the special magic of complexion of the latter. There might be no inherent reason why it should not have been the production of Agrippa. Difficulties concerning it may be reduced to three heads. One is of time. It appeared after the death of the restless, speculating philosopher of Nettersheim. Now, posthumous publication is not necessarily open to suspicion unless it is a treatise on magic. But a treatise on magic of the period concerned, not appearing in the lifetime of the writer, is open to the gravest suspicion because of the scandalous company to which it belongs. The second difficulty is internal. I do not think that it can be overridden. It is, to a considerable extent, a Ranschauif, I don't know what that means, of various proportions of the three undisputed books, and even in the days of Agrippa, it is not likely that any author would have so liberally reproduced himself. The third difficulty is that it was rejected as a forgery by Wierus, a pupil of Agrippa, who must have had a good opportunity of knowing. Its rejection by later writers simply follows the lead of Wierus, and is therefore of no moment. The strength of the case against it lies mainly in the third difficulty, but other objections are possible. Though not the work of Agrippa, it is evidently produced in immediate proximity to his period. The book itself, which is quite informally written, falls into several divisions. There is firstly an elaborate treatise on the method of extracting the names of the good and evil spirits referred to the 7 planets. This is further development of this subject, treated at some length in the 3rd book of the Occult Philosophy. The method is of no importance to our inquiry, but those who have sought to unravel it confess that they have been baffled. I asked leave to assure my readers that I have not emulated their zeal by seeking to follow in their footsteps, and so far I am concerned, the method therefore remains in the bosom of its proper mystery. Possibly Agrippa and his successor were only fooling their readers and did not disclose the secret. The treatise on names is followed by one upon characters, and depending as it does from the first, this is also not readily intelligible. I have left it to those whom it may concern. Therefore comes the formal tabulation of all the known shapes familiar to the spirits of the planets, followed by a disquisition of pentacles and sigils upon the consecration of the instruments used in magical ceremonies, and also of fire, water, and so forth. The work concludes with methods of the invocation of good and evil spirits and a short process in necromancy, as I shall have occasion to cite it frequently in the second part. The analysis may here be confined to establishing its connection with diabolism and the kind of manifestations which are supposed to be obtained by its process. Like the Lemegeton, it gives specific directions for communicating with evil spirits, and there is no question whatever as to the lawful nature of the experiment, by which I mean, and no doubt on the subject entered into my mind of the writer who offers what he has to the artist without attempting to justify its nature. Refinements of this kind were evidently outside of the magic of the 15th century. In the following citations, I shall depart from my usual custom of translating at first hand and make use with some needful prunings of the versions of Robert Turner, which is quite faithful and has, moreover, a pleasant flavor of antiquity. Concerning the invocation of evil spirits. If we could call any evil spirit to the circle, it first behooveth us to consider and to know his nature, to which of the planets it agreeth, and what offices are distributed to him from the planet. This being known, let there be sought out a place fit and proper for his invocation, according to the nature of his planet and the quality of his offices of the same spirit, as near as the same may be done. For example, if his power be over the sea, the rivers, or floods, then let the place be chosen on the shore, and so of the rest. In like manner, let there be chosen a convenient time, both for the quality of the air, which should be serene, clear, quiet, and fitting for the spirits to assume bodies, and for the quality and nature of the planet, and so too the spirit, to wit, on this day nothing, the time wherein he ruleth, whether it be fortunate or unfortunate, day or night, as the stars and the spirits do require, these things be considered. Let there be a circle framed at a place elected, as well as for the defense of the invocant, as for the confirmation of the spirit. In the circle itself, there are to be written the general divine names, and those things which do yield deference unto us. The divine names which do rule the said planet with the offices of the spirits himself. The names, finally, of the good spirits which bear rule, and are able to bind and constrain that spirit which we intend to call. If we would further fortify our circle we may add characteristics and pentacles agreeing to the work. So also and within or without the circle, we may frame an angular figure inscribed with such numbers as are congruent amongst themselves to our work. Moreover, the operator is said to be provided with lights, perfumes, unguents, and medicines compounded according to the nature of the planet and the spirit, which do partly agree with the spirit by reason of their natural and celestial virtue, and partly are exhibited to the spirit for religious and superstitious worship. The operator must also be furnished with holy and consecrated things, necessary as well for the defense of the invocant and his fellows, as to sever the bonds which shall bind and constrain the spirit. Such are the holy papers, lamens, pictures, pentacles, swords, scepters, garments of convenient matter and color, things of the like sort. When all these are provided, the master and his fellows begin in the circle, and all those things which he useth, let him begin to pray with a loud voice and a convenient gesture and countenance, and let him make an oration unto God, and afterwards entreat the good spirits. He will read any prayers, psalms, or gospels for his defense. They should take the first place. Thereafter let him begin to invocate the spirit which he desireth with a gentle and loving enchantment to all the coasts of the world, commemorating his own authority and power, and let him then rest a little, looking about him to see if any spirits do appear, which if he delay, let him repeat his invocation as before until he hath done it 3 times. If the spirit still be pertinacious and will not appear, let him begin to conjure him with divine power, but in such a way that all the conjurations and commemorations do agree with the nature of the offices of the spirit himself, and reiterate the same 3 times from stronger and stronger, using objurations, contumelies, cursings, punishments, suspensions from his office and the power, and the like. So some of these books that we talked about, the Magic Circle, there's a very strict sort of floor plan that you have to do it. Like the Lesser Key of Solomon, I believe the Magic Circle has to be 9 feet. In Crowley's Liber 4, where he talks about the Magic Circle, I like the way he says it. Right, he says it just has to be in a proper proportion to the experimenter or the artist or the operator. So here it's even less. I don't see any reference to how big it should be. After the courses are finished, again cease a little, and if any spirit shall appear, let the invocant turn towards him. Receive him courteously and earnestly, entreating him, and let him require his name. Then, proceeding further, let him ask whatsoever he will. But if in anything the spirit shall shew himself obstinate or lying, let him be bound by a convenient conjuration. And if you still doubt of any lie, make outside the circle with the consecrated sword and figure of a triangle or a pentacle to compel the spirit to enter it. If you would have any promise confirmed upon the oath stretched out to the circle, and swear the spirit by laying his hands upon the sword, then have obtained the spirit in which you desire. by obtaining otherwise consented, license him to depart with courteous words, giving a command unto him that he do no hurt. And if he will not depart, compel him by powerful conjurations, and if he need require, expel him by exorcism, and by making contrary fumigations, which he departed, go not out of the circle, but stay, making prayers for your defense and conservation, and giving thanks unto God and the good angels. All these things be ordinarily performed, you may depart. So here they're saying if you conjure your spirit, and you're having problems with them, you put them into a pentagram or a triangle, where in the Goetia, it's the triangle of manifestation, which lies to the east of the circle. So you conjure the dude already in there, so he's not running amok wherever he wants. That seems to be wise. If your hopes are frustrated and no spirit will appear, yet for this you do not despair, but leaving the circle, return again at other times, doing as before. And if you shall judge that you have erred in anything, when you shall amend by adding or diminishing, for the constancy and reiteration doth often increase your authority and power, and striketh terror into the spirits, humbling them to obedience. Hence, some do use to make a gate in the circle, whereby they go in and out, which they open and shut as they please, and fortify it with holy names and pinnacles. This also we are to take notice of, that when no spirits will appear, but the master, being wearied, hath determined to cease and give over. Let him not therefore depart without licensing the spirits, for they that do neglect this are very greatly in danger, except they are fortified with some sublime defense. Oftentimes also the spirits do come, although they be not visible, for to cause terror to him that calls them, either in this thing which he useth, or in the operation itself. But this kind of licensing is not given simply, but by kind of dispensation with suspension until they shall render themselves obedient. When we intend to execute any effect by evil spirits where an apparition is not needful, this is to be done by making the required instrument or subject of the experiment itself, whether it be an image or a ring or a writing, any candle, character, or sacrifice, or anything of that sort. The name of the spirit is to be written thereon, with his character according to the exigency of the experiment, either writing with blood or using some perfume agreeable to the spirit. Making also frequent prayers to God and to the good angels before we invocate the evil spirit, and conjuring him by the divine power. The perfumes, the undigents, and the suffumigations are always important when we're talking about these things. They use the good-smelling stuff, the things that are agreeable to the spirit, as it says here, to lure them in. And then we're ready to get rid of them. We burn some gross shit, right? Like Tobit in the fish liver. Over and above the formal diabolism of this process, there are instructions for composing a book of evil spirits, to be prepared ceremonially according to their name and the order by means of a holy oath. The ready obedience of the spirit whose name is written therein is supposed to be ensured. The book itself must be formed of the most pure and clean paper which has never been used previously. A stipulation which may have been of moment in the days of the Pompestus, but is, of course, scarcely necessary in our own. The image of the spirit must be drawn on the left side, and this character on the right, preceded by the oath which embodies the name of the spirit, together with his dignity, place, office, and his power. The operation must be performed on the day and in the hour of the planet to which the spirit is attributed. When the book has been composed, it must be well bound and emblazoned, being furnished also with markers and seals for to open it at random after its consecration might endanger the operator. It should be kept reverently and free of profanation. I like that, for otherwise it will lose its virtue, its consecration, as a matter of some difficulty, as every spirit whose name appears therein must be called before the circle, the bonds read over his presence, and each in the succession must be compelled to impose his hand where his respective image and character are drawn, and to confirm and consecrate the same with a special and common oath. In a word, in a document, it must be regularly and legally delivered as an act indeed of each. During the ceremony, the book must be laid within a triangle described outside of the circle. There can be no doubt that these directions are the work of a writer well acquainted with the Lemegeton, or that the Liber Spiritum in question, identical with the that mentioned by Wierus, the forms assumed by the evoked spirits differ somewhat from those of the lesser key, which moreover, at least in its goetic proportion, has no planetary attribution according to Pseudo-Agrippa. The spirits of Saturn usually appear with a tall and lean body and an angry countenance, having 4 faces, of which one is the usual position, another at the back of the head, and the 2 with beaks on either side. They have also a face on each knee of a shining black. Their motion is that of the wind. It is accompanied with a kind of earthquake. Their sign is a white earth, whiter than any snow. Their particular forms are of a bearded king riding on a dragon, or an old bearded man, or an old woman leaning on a staff, a boy, a dragon, an owl, a black garment, a hook or a sickle, a juniper tree. How the 3 last manifestations are provided with the 6 visages is a perplexity which must be surrendered to occult commentators. The spirits of Jupiter appear with a sanguine and caloric body. They are of middle stature. Their motion is horrible and fearful, but they are of mild countenance and gentle in speech, and they are of iron color, which will ought to have connected them with Mars, and their motion is that of a flashing lightnings with flashing lightnings and withal thunderous. Their sign is the apparition of men about a circle who seem to be devoured by lions. Their particular form are a king with a drawn sword riding on a lion, a mitred personages with long vestments, a maid crowned with laurel adorned by flowers, a bull, a stag, a peacock, an azure garment, a knife, a box tree. The spirits of Mars have tall bodies, caloric, and a filthy countenance, brown, swarthy, or red in color. They have horns, like a hart, claws, like a griffin, and they bellow like wild bulls. They have the motion of burning fire. Their sign is thunder and lightning about the circle. Their particular forms are an armed king riding on a wolf, an armed man, a woman holding a buckler on her thigh, a she-goat, a horse, a stag, a red garment, wool, cheese-tip. Wool of a caloric disposition is perhaps a goetic form of gun cotton. The spirits of the sun are usually large of body and limbs, sanguine, gross, and of a gold color, tinctured with blood, which recalls Mrs. Browning's pomegranate. Their motion is that of lightning, and their sign is to produce sweat in all the operator, which might, however, be a normal property of all these stellar nondescripts of the world infernal. Their particular forms are of a sceptered king riding a lion, a crowned king, a queen with a scepter, a bird, not otherwise described, but anything, probably except that of a paradise, a lion, a cock, a golden garment, a scepter, and lastly something which Robert Turner wisely left untranslated. Oh boy. Codatus, tailed. All right, hold on. All right, so I just punched it up here, and he obviously he translated it. Caudatus just means tailed. It's having a tail-like appendage. The spirit of Venus have a body of medium height. Oh shit! Hold on, I got to redo that. The spirit of Venus have a body of medium height and a pleasant visage, of which the upper part is golden and the lower is white or green. Their motion is like that of a brilliant star. Their sign is a semblance of maids sporting about in a circle and luring the magician to join them. Their particular forms are a sceptered king riding on a camel, a naked maid, a she-goat, a camel, possibly the atrocious demon of Kazat, a dove, a white-green garment, the herb Savine. The spirits of Mercury appear commonly with the body of middle stature, cold, liquid, moist, which sounds redundant with the reference is to the properties of quicksilver, that is to say, the mercury of the philosophers, which was supposed not to wet the hand, but the mercurial spirits of the sorcerer apparently did. When they are withal fair, affable in speech, and human shape, they are like unto armed kings. They are comparable to the silver-colored clouds in their motions. Their sign is that they cause horror and fear in the operator. Their special shapes are a king riding on a bear, a comely youth, a woman holding a distaff. It's difficult to understand how such a apparition can be like an armed knight, an observation which, if it were worthwhile, might apply to the remaining modes of manifestation. A dog, a she-bear, a magpie, a garment of many changing colors, a rod, and a little staff. Finally, the spirits of the moon have large, soft, phlegmatic bodies, even as a dark cloud in color. Their countenance is swollen and their head bald. Their eyes are red and rheumy. Their teeth like those of a wild boar. Their motion is that like a great tempest sweeping the sea. Their sign is a heavy shower of rain about the circle. Their particular shapes are a king like an archer riding on a doe, a little boy, a huntress with a bow and arrow, a cow, a small doe, a goose, a green or silver-colored garment, an arrow, the many-footed creature, perhaps a centipede. The The imbecility of this muddled tabulation places the forged fourth book in a more absurd light than it otherwise deserves. It really reproduces the manner of Agrippa's treatise with a fidelity which is not unskillful and has quite as much claim to be taken seriously as any of the composite rituals. It is difficult to say whether it is more, especially on the side of the devil or on that of folly, except so far as these two are one. So we have time left. I'm going to be able to knock out two of these, I think. Hold on. Yes, sir. So we're also going to do here for the last half. Let's see. The Heptameron. So it starts out here with something I kind of already alluded to, was that this the fourth book of Agrippa here sort of doesn't have as many kind of rules that we're used to looking at here. We're going back to Waite's book. The section on composite rituals, part 6, the Heptameron. The fourth book of Cornelius Agrippa was much too informal and left too much to the discretion of the operator to be satisfactory for a science so exact as that of ceremonial magic. A form of procedure which bequeathed nothing to the imagination and has no other skill than the patent exactitude of the rule of thumb was necessary to the weakness of the ordinary sorcerer. The Heptameron, or magical elements, ascribed to Peter de Abano. Peter de Abano is an attempt to supply the want and to offer the neophyte a complete wizard's cabinet. Cornelius Agrippa says the introduction, which might hypothesize be that of a latter hand, seems to have written for the learned, for the well-experienced in the art. He does not treat especially of those ceremonies, but mentions them in a general way. Those who have not tasted magical superstitions may here find them ready to their hand. In brief, in this book are kept the principles of magical conveyance. It may be conceded that once the undertaking is scrupulously fulfilled, what the operator must do and how it should be performed so to draw spirits into disclosure are matters set forth so plainly by the wayfaring man need not err therein, assuming the sacerdotal office of the operator or a priest of an accomplice, but is so simple that failure cannot well be ascribed to a blunder on his part. It would be invidious to suppose that the Heptameron is more authentic as regards its attribution than the work which it is professed a sequel. Its real authorship is involved in much the same way of obscurity that of Pseudo-Agrippa. There are several grave reasons why the pupil of There are several grave reasons why the pupil of Trithimus should not have written a spurious fourth book, but the Peter de Abano is not an unlikely personage to connect with the magical elements. If it were not for a trifling chronological disparity of about 300 years, it is true that Agrippa profusely wrote upon magic and the other upon astrology and geomancy, unless his imputed work in these departments of occult sciences are also forgeries. But the Heptameron was never heard of for the space in which I have mentioned after the death of its reputed author, which occurred in 1316. It is too obviously later in its tone to obviously be a sequel to the much more recent work, for it to have been possibly a memorial for the 14th century. Peter of Abano, a town in the vicinity of Padua, was born in 1250, and he was a learned physician of the period who attempted to conciliate the different medical systems. It is supposed to have been the first European who quoted Averroes. He established himself at Paris, but at the instigation of jealous professional brethren, he was accused of heresy, and he fled to his native place at Padua. A chair of medicine was created for him, but the accusation followed its victim. By some, he was charged with defying the existence of demons. By other, he was obtaining his knowledge from 7 imps that he kept in a bottle. However this may be, the Inquisition instituted a process, but the designed sufferer was delivered by death, as some say, on the eve of his execution. The intervention infuriated the tribunal, though the testament left behind him by Peter of Abano affirmed his belief in the Orthodox faith. The magistrates of the city were ordered, on pain of excommunication, to exhume his body, but it was removed by a faithful servant and buried secretly in another church. The Inquisition clamored for the punishment of the offender, but was content in the end to burn the dead physician in effigy. As counterpoise, a century later, his bust was placed in the town hall of Padua. His undoubted works, which were frankly unreadable, betrayed no acquaintance with that of the occult sciences beyond a belief in astrology, which in those days was as Catholic as Rome and powerful as the Holy Tribunal. He remembered, therefore, not one of the mortal martyrs of magic, Fausament accusé, as Gabriel nowadays has it. His accusations and the mode of its persecution remains also along the lesser glories of the Holy Office. So that's something I sort of learned the hard way. I was living in Europe. We were going around looking at old churches and all this stuff. Whenever we had a weekend, we would just go and jump on the train and, go to Spain or Paris or Munich, wherever, Austria, we find ourselves anywhere. And looking at old Catholic churches, this was before I was even deep into this stuff, but I would look at it and be like, oh, why are there like zodiac signs around these clocks and stuff? Like, that doesn't make any sense. I was silly. I knew enough to be dangerous, I guess. But then, like, even today, Rome is, has this link with not so much astrology, but astronomy for sure. Like, they have one of the most like powerful telescopes and all that stuff. So it's just that this little story just brought me to thinking about that. Accepting the Heptameron as a work belonging to the period of its first publication, it is here placed among the rituals of the composite character. Not because it profusely deal with devils, but because the nature of its angels and the spirits indicated by the manner of their conjuration. In a word, they are described as angels and threatened as demons. The procedure is divided into 2 parts: a general method for the evocation of the spirits of the air, who are undoubtedly demons, and a set of angelical conjurations proper to each day of the week. The second section presumably belongs to the department of Waite Magic, if I may adopt this glorious distinction of the ribaldry of the passing moment, as the intelligences concerned, are said to be good and great, although their offices are mixed and confusing, including the discovery of treasures, the detection of secrets, the fomenting of war, the opening locks and bolts, procuring the love of women, inclining men to luxury and sowing hatred and evil thought. Obviously, white magic is a kind of this kind is much blacker than it is painted. Although the entire Heptameron appears under one attribution. The first part only is ascribed to the text of Peter de Abano. Therein, the personal preparations of the operator corresponds to that given in the second part of the present work, and the ceremonial itself, which, if cited at all, would have to be printed in extenso, as it contains no detachable portions, is much too elaborate to be inserted in this place, especially as that of the Lemegeton will provide later in a fairly complete notion of the scope and purpose of the composite rituals taken in their broad aspect, and will illustrate the fact that all conventional distinctions dissolved therein. So next week we're going to be talking about, or not next week, but next Ritual Magic episode, we're going to be talking about one of my favorites, and that's the sacred magic of Abramelin the Mage. So I've been John Towers. This has been the Abracast, and in the background, I'm sure you can hear my wife's two brand new birds, Sage and Willow. Thank you. I'll talk to you next week, guys. Oh, remember to check out Abracast.com. Check out the tarot cards. Just an update. I'm doing a Thoth expansion. It's a 4 card pack that addresses some of the changes that Crowley did in the traditional tarot cards versus his Thoth deck. And also, I'm chipping away at doing a second, or not a second set of tarot cards, but a set of complementary oracle cards that go with my tarot card deck. So check them out at Abracast.com. Hit up my Instagram if you want to see early previews of the Thoth expansion, and order a t-shirt or something. I'm John. I hope you guys have a good week. Talk to you next weekend. Bye.
Thank you for listening, and we hope that you enjoyed the show. Please send an email or find us on social media and let us know what you think about the show. We would appreciate it if you would give us a 5-star rate and review wherever you find your favorite podcasts. You can find Stigmata Studios, graphic, novels, and comic books. Take control of your destiny. Understand your past, put your present in context, and know your future with a twist. Check out the Abracast Tarot Card Deck. Your body is your temple. So let's make sure you got a badass t-shirt on it. Variety of cool occult themed t-shirts. And other merch like stickers, wall art, mugs, and more. Welcome to the Red Archive. Get access to over 50 hours of archived episodes. More bonus audio. Additional exclusive content. All this for only $1 a month. Are you interested in the occult, history, conspiracy, and violence? Learn more at Abracast.com.